Hey everybody. I'm bored. COVID has made me bored, and I've gotten to the hobby of tabletop board gaming. It's beyond what I grew up with Monopoly and Scrabble, those traditional family games. I found myself, my eyes wide open to this world of board gaming. And today, I'm just going to go through an overview of this board game, Dungeons & Dragons Wrath of Ashardalon. This is a tabletop miniature dungeon crawler for 1 to 5 players. It is based on the very popular Dungeons & Dragons RPG. I've never played it before, so I know it's very complex. It's very detailed and a lot of depth. The Dungeons & Dragons team decided to try to translate that experience into a board game that is more approachable for the casual gamer. I'm a casual gamer. I'm definitely not a hardcore gamer like some of the people who play the RPG version. This is sort of an introduction into the world of D&D, where you're exploring, you are crafting your characters, you're trying to do character development and improve their stats and also survive. But this is a much more simplified version. I don't even think it's as complicated as some of the other dungeon crawler board games out there, like I think Gloomhaven and maybe Descent. But what intrigued me was the price point. The price point is about half the cost of something like Gloomhaven or even Descent. And this is the second board game series for Dungeons & Dragons. The first one was Castle Ravenloft. I think the one after this is Legend of Drizzt, and I think there's maybe about 6 or 7 now that they have. And each version or each edition that's come out is based on, I think, a story arc within Dungeons & Dragons. Again, I don't know too much about it. This one is obviously based on the dragon Ashardalon and that story arc. And that's one of the things the reason why I picked this one. The price point was right, and also come on, look at this cover art. It's an awesome dragon. So Castle Ravenloft was the very first one and introduced the initial mechanics of the game, and I think this second version built on it, sort of improved on some of it, and each version after that has added some additional components or aspects of the game to make it more interesting, and obviously to keep people buying it. But I've only got this one. But the core play is the same between all of them. This is fully cooperative. So you and a team of up to 4 other people are working together through various missions or scenarios. Every Dungeons & Dragons board game comes with a adventure book. This one comes with 13 scenarios. And the scenarios vary in terms of your objectives. Some of them could be finding an escape. You're stuck in the dungeon, you're just finding an escape, or you're just trying to survive, or you trying to find a particular item within the dungeon lair, or you're just trying to destroy as many monsters as you can to earn some points, or there's some randomization. There are, you enter a sort of a large chamber within the dungeon, and what's in that chamber is randomized. You don't really know. Each time you play, you don't know what can happen. There's also the showdown between you and the dragon, and you can link them all together as well to form a campaign. So while you can play each scenario as sort of a one-off, you can link them all together to create a full campaign. Now, the adventure book outlines the cards you'll need. It outlines which tiles you'll need, and I'll explain that in just a minute. And basically the overall setup and sort of the storyline to it. Again, it's not as detailed as you would find for the RPG, but it's enough. It's good enough, especially for entry level. I'd say, while it says ages 12 and up, I think this works as early as maybe age 8. Some reading, some intensive reading, because there's a lot of cards, but the game flow is very straightforward. It's very easy to follow. And the most you'd have to do, and because it's cooperative, you can always help out the younger kids read the card and explain to them what it is. So this is Wrath of Ashardalon, and for this game, it's a dungeon crawler. So you would have these tiles and a stack of tiles that comes with the game. The tiles are good quality. They're very thick cardboard. And as you're exploring the dungeon, you'll be revealing these tiles that interlink with the existing tiles. It's a really interesting setup, and I think it's really neat. And as you're exploring, you'll be coming across either encounters with, harsh environments or monsters that appear. It's randomized in terms of the layout, and as you're exploring, the look of your dungeon really never looks the same twice because it is random. And certain scenarios, you will be shuffling in the stack a special type of tile which triggers some kind of event or triggers some kind of condition based on the scenario, and that's how the end of that mission begins. So you'll be choosing a character. There are, I believe, 5 characters that comes with the base. This is the core box, retail box. I don't think there was a Kickstarter. I don't think this was a Kickstarter type game. And they each come with miniatures. Let me see if I can get my autofocus working here. So they each come with miniatures. So this is an example of one of them. His name is Heskin. They're a specific class and type, and they each have their own unique stats. And that's one of the interesting things about Dungeons and Dragons. You're sort of starting with characters, or you have characters they're not quite the same. They each have their own unique ability. And for this, choosing the character that you feel works the best for you is part of the adventure, part of the exploration, because they all have different powers and abilities, and you kind of want to craft it how you'd like it to be. So that particular character I have was Heskin. And he is, again, these are thick tile cards, character cards, which is nice. He is a Dragonborn wizard. You have the stats here listed. You kind of have sort of some flavor text here. The AC stands for armor class, and armor class is basically your defense. So when you're being attacked, there's a bit of dice rolling in this. Depending on the result, this is your defense to the attack. Your HP is your hit points. That's how much damage you can take before you're knocked out or KO'd. Your speed value is the number of spaces or number of squares on the tiles that you can move. And your surge value, the surge value is an interesting concept in Dungeons and Dragons. If you are ever knocked out below your health and you're out during your turn, on your next turn, you can spend what's called a healing surge. For a typical standard game, you're given 2 healing surges for the group. So if you're playing with 5 people, you're sharing 2 healing surges. Each healing surge, once you use it, you will regain 3 hit points, and that brings your character back to life. Once you've used up all your healing surges, and on the next round, someone needs to use a healing surge and you don't have any left, the game is over for you. The group has basically died. The box comes with 5 healing surges, which pretty much evens it out for 1 per player if you're up to 5 players. But they say that the average or the standard is for 2. If you want to make the game a little easier, you can increase the number of healing surges that you have so that you have more opportunity to come back to life or revive yourself. Or if you want to make it really harder, you can remove the number of healing surges you have. And if you feel like going in bold and saying you don't need any healing surges, good luck to you. So he has some information regarding a special ability that he has, as well as the powers. Powers are represented by cards. And in this situation, it tells you usually a default card, a name of a card that is in your hand, as well as choosing several different types of cards. And there are the types here: utility, at will, and daily powers. This is something that's really nice about this game, is that here you can craft how you want your character. The cards are different, they have different abilities, and you get to pick and choose. So every time you play the game, you can choose some different powers to see how it plays out. So that's something that I do like about this particular game, is that it gives you the sense of control to customize the character so you can really feel like you are that character. You'll see at the bottom here, he is a first level. First level means this is his base. This is his starting trait. If during the course of the game you are earning experience, and this is through killing monsters, every monster that you kill, you earn experience. If you have at least 5 experience, and on an attack roll you roll a 20, a natural 20, you can spend 5 experience and you can upgrade or enhance your character to their second level. And that's it. It only goes up to 2 levels. It's a nice twist, something that would kind of like encourage you to try to roll a 20 if you can, but also keep in mind that you have additional abilities. But it's not, it's not as immersive as an RPG where you are, throughout the course of your character's life in the RPG, you are constantly upgrading your level. There are many, many levels. So this game sort of tries to capture that essence, but it only gives you 2 levels. So you'll notice that it gives you some different information regarding what happens when you level up. You get some bonuses to your stats, and you get usually an additional bonus or ability to your character. And again, it's different depending on the character. So that's the character card. And if at the beginning, you'll be starting on the tile. In terms of the monsters that you'll be facing, the monsters vary in terms of difficulty. They also vary in terms of how many hit points they have. But some of the basic ones, this is a Dugard guard. The miniatures are actually pretty good. I think they're base 28 mil. I'm not 100% sure. But the sculpts are good, and I think if you're a miniature painter, you'll probably have a good time bringing these guys to life. And in terms of scale, they fit nicely in terms of the scale to the actual hero. And then you have a few that are ginormous, like here is the dragon, Ashardalon, and you can see in terms of scale, he is quite large. And that, again, adds to the sort of experience, the fun experience of a miniature tabletop board game. So there are 3 sequences to your play. There's the hero phase, the exploration phase, and the villain phase. On the hero phase, you'll get to do one of 2 things basically. You can move, you do one of the following 3 things. You can move and then make an attack. You can attack and then move, and then you can make 2 moves, or you can make 2 moves, 2 consecutive moves. And moving is up to whatever move speed value that you have. So on the tile, you'll see this is the start tile, and it's one of the rare tiles that's actually 2 tiles in one, but every other tile is sort of a single block. And you'll be starting anywhere near the stairs. And on your turn, during the hero phase, you're able to move anywhere you want within your space. You can move orthogonally, you can move diagonally, provided that it doesn't travel through any type of blocking terrain. You'll notice that the tile, it's not exactly the most artistic tile in terms of a dungeon crawler, but have you ever walked into a basement of a house that's not finished? It doesn't look very pretty, so it's very plain. So I imagine that's what this is like. And to keep things consistent in terms of exploring tiles, sort of that bland, neutral tone look makes sense. It would be nice if they had like some, bones, skulls, or whatever lying around, but that's okay. So you'll start at the edge of it, near the stairs, and as you move, you can move however you want. If there's enemies on the board, you'd be attacking them. But in this situation, the very first thing you'd be doing is if you move to an unexplored edge of the tile, at the end of your hero phase, again, there's no one here to attack, but at the end of your hero phase, you would be revealing a tile, a new tile from the stack of tiles that you have. So from this stack, you draw the top and you'd flip it over, and this is a bad example. Let me choose a different one. Here's a good one. So you'd flip it over, you have no idea what's coming up, and you'll see there are several components. You'll see that there's a burn mark. In this particular one, there are, it's a sort of an open door. This one is not necessarily used in all scenarios that you play. There are extra tokens that you would cover here to show that the door is closed, and you don't know what's behind it. You have to take an action, or you have to open the door or come adjacent to it, open the door, and the door card will reveal what is behind the door. So it could be good, it could be bad, but for most of the scenarios, it's considered open. You'll see the burn mark here, which represents if there is a monster to appear, this is their starting position. If a monster is moving and they move between tiles, not between squares, they will move to the most, if there's an available burn mark, or any square adjacent to the burn mark if it's occupied. You'll also see that every tile has a square, a white or black. A black one means that you need to do something extra during the next phase, which is the villain phase. But if it's white, you don't have to do that extra step. So the arrow is there also to align where the tile is to be placed. So the tile always faces your character. So in this situation, I've drawn this tile and I lay it out. So there is the first part of exploring. And then in the next phase, which is the during the exploration phase as well, you would draw the tile, you place it down, and you would draw a card from the monster deck. Now this is where the monsters appear, because you've explored a tile and there's a monster waiting for you, so you draw it. You'd find the appropriate character. This one's an Orc Smasher, so I have my Orc Smasher miniature here. And you would place that Orc Smasher in the burn mark. The Orc Smasher now becomes a monster that you control. So on your turn, you'll be any monsters that appear during your turn, they go sort of in a space on your side of the table. And during the villain activation or monster activation, any of the monsters that you control activate. Now, it is possible for you to have an Orc Smasher and the other player or other players in your team to have an Orc Smasher as well. So it's not unique or one for the group, it's one per person. So I can't have more than one Orc Smasher under my control, but my other players can also have an Orc Smasher. But when I activate my Orc Smasher, I am activating every Orc Smasher that's on the board. So that's kind of an interesting twist, because if you have a lot of Orc Smashers, if you have 5 people and they each have an Orc Smasher in their control and it's your turn to activate, all the Orc Smashers will activate. So you'll also notice that they have sort of a tactic, which is basically a pre-programmed set of rules on how they behave. And any one of these conditions that are met, you follow. If nothing is met, it doesn't do anything. They have an attack roll value and the amount of damage on a successful roll. And as a standard Dungeons and Dragons, you have your standard D20. So you roll a 3, 3 plus 9 is 11. In this situation, Heskin's armor class is 14, so he doesn't take any damage. And at the bottom, you'll see 2 experience. If you defeat the Orc Smasher, you get 2 experience, and this goes into a common pool for everyone to use. Experience points can be used for multiple things, including leveling up, and the experience is shared amongst your group. So in this situation, we've revealed the monster, and you'll notice that I had drawn a black triangle. The black triangle means you have to do an additional step in your villain phase. We are now entering the villain phase, and from the villain phase, you would draw from an encounter deck. The encounter means something environmental or situational is about to happen. So we're going to draw, and we get a cave-in. It's a hazard. And there is a cave-in marker that you have, and you would place that marker on the tile, and you would follow its text. And it says that it would do a +9, you do an attack, and the amount of damage that it does. Okay? So in this situation, Heskin would have a cave-in, we'd roll the dice. It rolls to off camera on a 17. 17 plus 9 is is 25 or 26, so he would take 2 damage right off the bat. And he starts with a health of, or sorry, hit points of 6, so he'd be down to 4, and we would discard the card. So it's a one-time event that takes place. Then, if it was a white triangle, we would not have to draw that encounter card. Then the Orc Smasher, or your whatever monsters you have in your control, would activate. In this situation, he actually moves adjacent, and he would attack with his heavy mace. So you'd roll, he rolls a 2, thank goodness, it's 11, it's a miss. So nothing happens. Now, let's just say we were to go back to the beginning, and let's just say for whatever reason, well, actually, you know what, we'll leave this tile out. Let's just say we're back here, we attack the Orc Smasher, and I forgot to go through an important part, which is the ability cards. So your ability cards are a set of cards that you have, and you would choose based on your character's outline. So in this situation, I get Hurled Breath, and I get 1 utility, 2 at wills, and 1 daily. Every card has the name of the card, the type card, name of the card, and the ability plus the attack and damage values that come with it, or whatever the ability does. So you have at will, utility power, daily power, and that's it. So at will powers are the type of powers that you can use consistently, constantly. Like they never exhaust. So while you can only do 1 attack per turn, you can continue to use at will on each of your turns. A utility power is a one-time use, usually an ability, possibly an attack, but mostly an ability, and it tells you that after you've used this power, you flip this card over. It can no longer be used again on future turns, unless you come across something that allows you to flip it back over. Daily powers work in the same sense. They are usually some kind of attack or some kind of bonus to your attack. And again, once you've done it, you have to flip that card over. So you'd be choosing the set of powers, and you would be doing the attacks. Now, on your turn, say for example, Heskin wants to do his Arc Lightning, he can attack up to 2 monsters. Each monster can be on your tile or any tile within 1 tile of you. So another important aspect is tile counting. Tile counting is always done orthogonally, not diagonally, if it breaks a wall. So in this situation from here, the starting tile is considered 2 tiles, even though it's 1 physical tile. So if Heskin was over here and you were counting tiles, it's not 1 tile away. This tile is not 1 tile away. It is 2 tiles away. But we'll put him back here where he was. And let's just say he does his attack, which is +7 to his attack roll. He gets a 19, +7, 26, and he does 1 damage. And you'll see that the Orc Smasher has a hit point of 2, so he's still alive. Now, even though I've done my attack, I can move. In Dungeons and Dragons, you're not based unless the character has that ability to base you. So Heskin is free to move. But if I choose not to move, and I choose to stay here, what would happen is that would end my hero phase, and I would be going into the exploration phase. Now, prior to the turn prior to that, I had ended my turn at the edge of an unexplored tile, but in this situation, I'm not. So instead of drawing a tile, I will be drawing an encounter card. So we'll draw another encounter card, and it says, without looking at it, take the bottom dungeon tile from the stack and place it on top. So again, encounter decks vary in terms of what it does. Sometimes they are environmental attacks, sometimes it's a surprise attack on something, or a certain condition, or a trap that's been done, even a curse on you. So it's usually it's negative. So if I were to follow the rules, I just take the bottom tile, put it on top. That's it. And then I would go back into my villain phase, where the Orc Smasher would just attack me again. He gets an 11 plus 9. That is a successful hit. So I would take a hit, and I'd be down to 3. And that would end my villain phase, and I go back to my hero phase. In my hero phase, once again, I could choose to use Arc Lightning, and I will. I get an 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 is enough because his armor class is 15. You need equal or higher in order to defeat him, and he is eliminated. So this becomes experience. I usually tilt it on its side to indicate I have experience. I take the Orc Smasher off the board that I was attacking, and every time you defeat a monster, you get to draw a treasure. Sort of a, you beat them, you searched them, and you found something useful. And you draw from the treasure card deck. And it's usually an item that helps you in some way. So this one is the description or the name of the item and the ability. So it says here, use when you take damage, reduce the damage from the attack by 1. So you have to flip this card after using the item. So again, this is something where you could potentially have the ability again if you come across something that allows you to flip a card over. So we're going to keep this and hold on to that. So we did our attack. I still have the opportunity to move, and if I were to move, I might as well take advantage and move right to the edge of a tile. So I'll move to this one, and that ends my hero phase. You would check any cards that are in play for any end of hero phase effects. But I have none, so we're going to draw another tile, and you'll see that I've drawn a black triangle tile, and I'm going to align it. And now I draw a monster card, which is an Orc Archer. And let's see, where's my Orc Archer? Here he is. And I'll place him on the burn mark. And because I drew a tile with a black triangle, I'm also drawing an encounter card. So it says, I'm cursed. Place this card on your hero card as a reminder. At the end of your exploration phase, find the monster closest to your hero that is not on your hero tile. Place that monster adjacent to your hero. So we drew this encounter card at the beginning of the villain phase. So this happens on our next one. So at the end of your exploration phase, you can, if you roll a 10 or higher, discard this card. So we're cursed. Something negative that's sort of perpetual until you're able to remove the curse. And we would be activating the Orc Archer. And the Orc Archer says, if he's adjacent, he does a punch. If he's within 2 tiles, he shoots with his arrow. His arrow is a +6 with 2 damage, and even if it's a miss, it's 1 damage. So not fun at all. And so we'll roll. He rolls a 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. He missed, but I still take 1 damage, which brings me down to 2 health. And you'll see here he has 1 experience and 1 hit point, but with a lower armor class. So that was the villain phase, and now we go back to the hero phase. What would be happening is, if there was another player, you would just go between players. So you can see that in terms of scalability, the more players you have, it scales the number of monsters and number of encounters equally. So I think that's actually really good. It can be overwhelming at times. Some cards draw extra monsters or extra tiles, and then it can actually get quite intense. And it's tough if you don't use your abilities where you're doing more than 1 damage to someone who has more than 1 hit point. So here we go back into our hero phase, and Heskin's gonna go ahead and use his Arc Lightning one more time, but let's see what else I have. I think that was it. If I had the Spectral Ram, I might be able to do +3. But I'll do his Arc Lightning one more time, and we'll see what we get. I get a 7. A 7 plus 7 is 14, which is higher than his the Orc Archer's 13 armor class, and he only has a hit point of 1, so he's done. And I draw another treasure, which I get the Crossbow of Speed. Used during your hero phase, instead of moving, you can attack a monster with one tile with a rapidly fired bolt. So we'll keep that in our hands as well. So now we've done our attack, we can move. So I will go ahead and move to this tile. On my exploration phase, I'm going to reveal this tile. This is a special tile. It's a long hallway. You'll notice that the triangle is white, so I do not have to draw an encounter card during my villain phase. And it's going to say, place the top tile from the stack next to this tile's unexplored edge. So we're going to aim the arrow towards him, and we're going to reveal another tile, and we'll put that down. Now, what I've read in terms of ruling is if you drew this tile and this was a black triangle, that would indicate on your villain phase you would have to draw an encounter card. If you drew the second tile because it's a long hallway and it was also black, then you draw the encounter card. If this triangle is black and this triangle is white, it indicates it. These both have to be the same color in terms of black in order for you to draw an encounter card. So we'll draw this and we'll place this down. And we draw a monster card. Now it's just one monster card, even though there's two burn marks, and it'll go to the closest burn mark. So this is a Grell, and it's got its tactics and attack values there. Oh, I forgot to put the Orc Archer into our experience pile. And for our Grell, I have to go through my baggie of monsters, and we have him right here. And we'll be placing him over here. And we go through that sequence again. We don't have to draw an encounter card because we did not draw a black triangle. So that's pretty much the game flow. At some point, you will reach some kind of trigger point that begins the ending of the scenario, and you'll either have to complete the objective or face off a monster. In some situations, say for example, where you just have to defeat 12 monsters, then you're just going through the dungeon defeating it. But you'll notice that it's really interesting how the dungeon unfolds, how the layout will be different each time. In terms of replayability, you've got different character cards that you can play with. You have a choice of different abilities and powers that you can use, so you can mix and match different combinations. And you can choose from one of the 13 scenarios. One of the scenarios that I've enjoyed the most right now is the Mysterious Chamber. The Mysterious Chamber has a special tile, which when you reveal it, opens up what it's called a large chamber. And in that chamber, you would draw from a chamber deck, a separate chamber deck, right here. And there are 14 chamber cards, and you would just shuffle, and you would just pick one. And that chamber card, I'm not going to show this one, but that chamber card will outline what's in this room. It'll outline the conditions, the monsters or enemies that you're going to be facing, and any other environment conditions to be fulfilled. And then it'll outline the objective or your goal. The goals can be different, and I like that because there's 14 to choose from. It's randomized every time, and you don't know when that chamber is going to be showing up. It could show up really quickly or show up later on after you've kind of exhausted your healing surges or your special powers. So I think the replayability is very high. It is a slower paced game because of the different phases and exploration, and if you have a lot of monsters in your control, they all have to activate. Managing your cards in terms of your treasure cards that you have, remembering some of the treasure cards might give you a bonus to your speed or a bonus to your attack values or your armor class, and you kind of have to keep track of that. So this, unlike I think Dungeons and Dragons, like the RPG, there's no system here to keep track of those plus and minuses to your stats. So having if you buy one of those stat trackers, it might be useful just to remember that you get a +4 from your attack roll to your attack roll, or a +3 to your armor class. That helps you keep track of things, or just write on a piece of paper as you go. The pace is a little bit slower. It's not as fast as some other games, but it is an exploration game. It is a dungeon crawler. You're trying to immerse yourself into this fantasy world and go through this dungeon as the character. I like that aspect. I like that it probably plays anywhere between 45 to 40, maybe about 45 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes on average for me, because I'm still sometimes referencing the rule book. The rules are laid out very easily. They're easy to understand, easy to consult if you have any questions. The text on the cards, very easy to understand. It's very well laid out, logical, and you just read and follow the text, and the sequence of play is very straightforward as well. So that's basically how you play Dungeons and Dragons in the board game. This is the Wrath of Ashardalon. I think it's one of the games I do enjoy playing. I like bringing it to the table because I like this exploration and sort of adventure component to it. It's not easy. I've gone through multiple scenarios and I get crushed very quickly, or I'm lucky and I just get by. It's not easy. You definitely need more than one. It's not solo. This can be played solo, but I would never recommend that solo. You can play with two characters if you are playing a solo game, but never just one character, because I don't think you'll make it very far. And there is a bit of luck because it is a dice roll system. So just like the RPG, I mean, if you roll bad rolls, then you'll never get anywhere and you'll be a very quick end to your game. So if you don't like that kind of unpredictability, then this isn't the game for you. If you prefer the type of dungeon crawlers that are more card-based, so you have a strategy, you have the ability to have some control, then you're better off doing that. But this, you're putting your life in the hands of this dice. So it's whatever your heart desires at that point. So there you go. That's Wrath of Ashardalon, and a quick overview on how the game works and how it's played. If you want, you can download the rulebook online. You can watch some videos. I've watched the Watch It Played video. That's how I learned about this. And I typically go through the rulebook and see if I like it, see if I like the mechanics and the gameplay before I buy it. And I did enjoy this one. So thanks for watching. Until next time.